Hey guys, so as you know, I'm watching The Final Problem again, and I got to Molly's game, which is right after the Gyaradev game, as we all know at this point. And I did find something a little interesting that I never actually realized before, which is why I love watching things over and over again, because I pick up more things the more I watch. But when Eurus drops the two innocent Gyarados that did not kill Evans, Jim's voice comes over the loudspeaker and he goes, "Mind the gap." And I thought this was interesting because for the first time when I heard that, it reminded me of the empty hearse when Sherlock takes Molly on that case to that train. I don't know if he was like a station master, kind of like Jim's brother, so that could have been a play on that. But um, Sherlock takes Molly on that case to that train guy's house, and when he's hesitant to press the doorbell, Molly kind of nudges his arm and makes him press the doorbell, and the doorbell says, "Mind the gap." And I thought this was interesting because it's kind of like a little tiny tidbit of foreshadowing because, as we know, Molly's game is next with the coffin. And it just brought me back to when he's being all soft with Molly and the day that he basically figured out that she was engaged and he was upset about it. So I don't know whether they did that on purpose or they did that purposely to foreshadow that a game including Molly was coming up next. But I thought that was interesting, the mind the gaps, which could also go towards, a gap in emotions or a gap in a connection, something like that. But I thought that play on words was interesting. Secondly, I want to bring up something else that I noticed. But aside from the John and Mycroft elimination game, which is the last game that Eurus plays when she tells Sherlock to shoot either John or Mycroft, there was another little foreshadowing within the Gyaradev game of that, where Eurus says, "Sherlock, I want to see you interact with your friends." And then right after that, which some people might miss, and I never really understood it before, but now I'm understanding it, she says, "Also, you may have to choose which one to keep." I think she's referring to what's going to happen at the end, where he has to choose which one to keep and which one to kill. But I find it interesting that other than that, Molly's game is the only puzzle, the only game that has to do with someone Sherlock personally cares about. Because the first game was the governor. Sherlock just met him. Yeah, he felt bad, but he wasn't a big character. The second one was the Gyarados, completely random people. Sherlock didn't know them. And then there was Molly's game, which was really, really emotional for him. And if her whole point was emotional context, the other two games sort of don't really make sense because they weren't too emotional for him. He wasn't connected to those people. But Molly's game is the only one that has to do with someone Sherlock personally cares about or loves, which is odd because Molly isn't even present there. She's not trapped there like Mycroft and John are with him, which really makes me think, and maybe it makes you think, that clearly, just due to this, there's obviously other reasons that Eurus chose Molly as the emotional context. She could have chosen Mrs. Hudson, because we already know Sherlock is fiercely protective of her. She could have chose Greg, because, as we know, Greg has known Sherlock for a long time as well. And those are also the other two people that were mentioned in Moriarty's list of three, I say, on the roof of Bart's. It was John, Mrs. Hudson, and Greg that he mentioned putting snipers on. But that also goes back again to when Sherlock said in The Lying Detective, there must be something comforting about the number 3. People always give up after 3. But circling back to Molly being the only game that has to do with someone Sherlock actually loves, who isn't present there at that moment. Um, Jim actually didn't give up after 3, clearly. He clearly saw what Molly meant to Sherlock because he's not emotional, so he doesn't have any sort of emotions clouding his judgment the way Sherlock does. And going back to Sherlock's quote, he didn't slip up. He didn't make a mistake. He knew that Molly was the one person who mattered the most to him. He must have. He must have known that Sherlock loved Molly. That's why Molly has her own game. That's why he planned this with Eurus. I think Eurus gave him Redbeard, as we see, what's my Christmas treat when Jim shows up at Eurus's cell and he goes, I'm your Christmas present, what's mine? And Eurus says, Redbeard. Eurus gave Jim the information about Redbeard, so I believe Jim gave Eurus the information about Molly at first, before she escaped into London and made her own decisions, since Jim was dead at that point. But those are just my thoughts. That's why I think Molly has her own game and nobody else does. Because she is the one person who matters most to Sherlock. She's the one person that has her own game. She's the one person that Eurus chooses to be his emotional context. Not Mycroft, not John, even though they're there with him and she does do a game with them. I think that was just kind of her playing cat and mouse with them, teasing them. Honestly, probably just seeing who Sherlock would choose, because as we hear her say when she thinks Sherlock is going to kill Mycroft, Jim Moriarty thought you'd make this choice. He was so excited. So I think her little elimination round with John and Mycroft was basically just a bet with Jim. We know Jim hated Mycroft for what Mycroft did to him in the past during the Reichenbach fall, having him beaten for information and locked up. So I think that was just a little cat and mouse game with them. But there was a definite reason that they chose Molly as Sherlock's emotional context. And it was because she was the one person who mattered most to Sherlock, and Jim didn't slip up. He did see that his ability to not feel pain, heartbreak, loss, any sort of emotion, any sort of remorse, made sure that he could see through Sherlock the way that Sherlock couldn't see through him. So those are some more of my thoughts that I figured I would talk about, that I realized in this 73rd viewing of the final problem. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you agree with me, or if anything I said made sense, if you can follow my train of thought. But yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks, guys. Bye.